Hey guys, it's me. It's been a while since I've done a Q&A, so without further ado, let's get to it. First set of questions comes from John McKinney. My 6 questions, answer as many as you can. Alright, who's your favorite villain from DC, Marvel, Disney, and Star Wars? Here's mine in case you're wondering. Okay, favorite DC villain, Lex Luthor. From the 90s Superman, the early 2000s Justice League, and world's finest fan film. Okay, not a bad choice. Besides the Joker, the Mark Hamill Joker from the 90s Batman show or the Arkham games, I would probably say it's Mr. Freeze. He's very sympathetic, how he just wants to save his wife. He wants to help find a cure for her. And you could say that's a bit too tiring and maybe just too like, oh, come on, it's so sad, I've seen this before. Sometimes a villain needs something like that, and to have us understand his perspective even though he's doing despicable things, he's a very sad, tragic figure, and I like villains like that. Favorite Marvel villain, Norman Osborn, Green Goblin. 90s Spider-Man, Spider-Man 1, and the 616. Well, he's my favorite too. I'll just say that Green Goblin is #1 for me for Marvel villains. But also, Thanos. I know it's from the movies. I need to read some of the comics. I liked what Josh Brolin brought to the character. I also really like Magneto. Very similar to Mr. Freeze in one specific way. You understand completely where he's coming from. On the flip side though, he's doing things that are just morally ambiguous. He has a hatred towards humans that he just can't let go of because of what he experienced as a young boy. And again, I'm not a comic book expert, but in the movies, they did a superb job of portraying that through Ian McKellen and Michael Fassbender. Favorite Disney villain? Mine's Jean-Claude Frollo from Hunchback of Notre Dame. Ooh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. Mine is Ratigan from The Great Mouse Detective. Maybe I'll do a review of the movie one day. So until then, I'll save the rest of my thoughts for later. That World's Greatest Criminal Minds song, that's been in my mind for years. Favorite Star Wars villain? Mine's Emperor Palpatine / Darth Sidious. Favorite Star Wars villain? Oh man, I'm stuck between Darth Vader and Kylo Ren, but yet they're both like, they're not technically villains. Yes, they are villains, but they end up being redeemed in the end, so I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I'm tempted to say that they're tied, but I can't really, I don't know. You know what? I was gonna say it's both of them. Kylo Ren and Darth Vader. Shoot me. Question 2, have you ever been attracted to a cartoon character? Personally, I see nothing wrong with it as long as you're able to come to terms with the fact that they're not real. No, I never have. I know people who have been, and that's not really something I ever given much thought, but if they are, okay, fine. But personally, I never really, no. Question number 3. How do you feel about the upcoming live-action Disney remakes? Those being Hunchback of Notre Dame, Lilo and Stitch, and Tarzan. Do you think they could work? I'm having a really hard time getting excited about these live-action remakes. And that's not to say that they've all been bad. The Jungle Book by Jon Favreau, that was really good. I really like that movie. I haven't seen Cinderella, though. Pete's Dragon, haven't seen it yet. Beauty and the Beast, I had a good time with it, but I didn't think it was that good. It was just emotionally hollow and just blah. In a lot of ways, it was almost a shot-for-shot remake of the original. And I expected that to happen, but I was hoping that it could have like the energy and heart. And on my end, it just didn't have it. I had the exact same experience with The Lion King. Not terrible as some people were saying it is. The personality and energy just wasn't there. And I also watched the Aladdin remake the other night. Didn't really do it for me either. Although Will Smith was the best part, just like Robin Williams was in the original. If I had any say of whether or not some of these live-action remakes should be done, I would say just pick and choose which ones to do. The Jungle Book, in that case I would go, yeah, we can do a Jungle Book remake. Pete's Dragon, well, not too many people know about that, so I would say, yeah, sure, go ahead. Little Mermaid, I could see that too. And I think you have a good opportunity to go into another side of her personality. Maybe have her weigh the options of like, well, I want to go up to the human world, but I really have a good life down here, so is it really worth throwing that all away just to go up there? I do like the original, don't get me wrong, but I think that that's one thing that they could have delved into, and they only have like one small moment where she realizes what she's about to do. And I think if they show more of that stuff, that might actually go a long way in standing out to people when they think about the remake. Movies like The Lion King or Aladdin or Beauty and the Beast, that's like near perfection as far as I'm concerned. All that being said though, it all comes down to who's making the movie and the execution. And so far on my end, there's been a lot of misses in that department. But in the coming years though, we'll see what happens. Question number 4. Do you think James Cameron's Spider-Man from 1996 would have been good or great? I've heard a lot about James Cameron's Spider-Man. I'm not really sure how that would have gone about. From what I've heard, he wanted to go have a sex scene with Peter and MJ on the top of the World Trade Center. I think that would have been a little too much. I think he really wanted to go the full R rating, from what I can tell. And I don't think the studios were really interested in that because you want to make it accessible to children, not just adults, which is what Sam Raimi's Spider-Man ended up being, having it appeal to both kids and adults. But naturally, though, as a Spider-Man fan, I would have liked to have seen how that would have came out. And I do respect James Cameron for a lot of the films that he's made, like Terminator, True Lies, Titanic. Avatar was alright, I guess. I haven't seen Aliens, though. Don't shoot me. Don't shoot me. I think it could have been a fun, entertaining movie. Could it have been great? Well, that really depends, because during that time, comic book movies were in a really weird spot because we had the Michael Keaton Batman, we had the Christopher Reeve Superman, then the Joel Schumacher thing happened, and then we had the Superman 4 Quest for Peace before that. It would have been a huge, huge gamble, and I don't know if it would have stuck the landing, but who knows. But it would have been interesting to see how they would have done it. Question 5, Street Fighter or Mortal Kombat? I didn't play either of those, so no comment. Sorry. Question 6, have you considered Bryan Cranston for the role of Norman Osborn, Green Goblin? Ooh, oh, wow, that's a good idea. That's really good. Who I would pick as Norman Osborn? I would either go with Jason Isaacs or Oscar Isaac. 2 Isaacs, I know. I don't know if you guys ever watched Captain Midnight. He's done a lot of videos on the Tom Holland Spider-Man and the Raimi Spider-Man and various other film-related topics. He did a video on why the Green Goblin needs to show up in the MCU. He suggested that Oscar Isaac should play the character. Personally, I think that the Green Goblin does need to show up in the Tom Holland Spider-Man. Now, whether the MCU will introduce him, we'll see if Sony is willing to give it another try. But Jason Isaacs, I think, would be a really good idea because he's terrific at playing a bad guy. Harry Potter and The Patriot are prime examples. And I'm sure there's other things that I don't know about that he's done. But he's also got that face that looks evil or cold and very strict and uncaring. Next set of questions is from Kelvin Mendez. Hi Joe, it's been an honor being a subscriber of yours and watching your content grow and evolve over the years. Keep up the amazing work, good sir. Thank you very much, good sir. Question 1, with the hype and anticipation for the upcoming Batman movie, what would you like to see from it? I guess I would like to see more of like an in-depth look of year 1 Batman, because we saw some of that in the Batman Begins movie with Christian Bale, but mostly it was the origin story of Batman. We saw him training with the League of Shadows, then his arrival on the scene in Gotham, and what we see of Batman, those are like the first few days of his crime-fighting career. And then when The Dark Knight comes in, it's been like, what, 6 months to a year or something like that? I would like to see that with a Robert Pattinson Batman. Show us a more in-depth look at year 1 of his crime-fighting career. And from what I've heard, they're going for a Batman noir type of feel, which you got a little bit of that in the Dark Knight trilogy, but it was a more grounded and realistic approach to the character, which there's nothing wrong with that. That's the direction that Nolan wanted to go in, and I have a lot of respect for him for that. With Matt Reeves, though, you obviously want to make it different from what's come before, make it stand out from the others. Otherwise, it's going to be mulching over the same stuff, so what would be the point of doing another one? And I think the Riddler's gonna show up in the movie. I want to see a Riddler that's very reminiscent of the one from the Arkham games. I know there's other stuff out there, but someone who's more methodical and subtle in his snarkiness and his intelligence. Because let's face it, in live-action Batman films, last time we saw Riddler was with Jim Carrey in Batman Forever. He was entertaining, don't get me wrong. Even that performance, Jim Carrey went a little too far. Which, don't get me wrong, I really like Jim Carrey. And at times he was really funny. The whole, caffeine will kill ya! Does anybody else feel like a fried egg? Who's afraid of the big black bat? But after a while, it was just too much. And also, Colin Farrell's supposed to be the Penguin. Can we get more of that criminal arms dealer mastermind type of Penguin? Again, like we see in the Arkham games and the animated series, from what I remember also. Again, last time we saw the Penguin was Danny DeVito. A lot of people might like that. That didn't do it for me. I'm sorry. Question number 2. Looking back on retrospect, do you think Andrew Garfield deserved so much better when he was with Spider-Man, such as better scripts, better consistent characterization, and no interference from Sony? Looking back on that whole situation, I think that he was dealt a really bad hand. I think overall, he's probably the worst live-action Spider-Man. I think he could play a good Spider-Man, but the material he was given, he basically was Deadpool in a Spider-Man costume. He joked way too much to the point where he just did not care about saving any innocent life. Although there's a couple of moments where we see it, yes, but overall, he was basically Deadpool in a Spidey outfit. His Peter Parker, though, Still a huge miscast in my opinion. That being said, I am fully aware that he's a big fan of the character in real life. I'm not doubting that he's a big Spidey fan in general, but I don't really think he quite gets Peter Parker, because he basically played the character as if he was the cool guy in his class. That's not really what Peter Parker's meant to be. I've gone into full detail in my reviews, so if you want to know, you can go watch them. Peter Parker is like this reclusive, shy, timid, nerdy kid, longs for having friends and a beautiful woman to go home to. Andrew Garfield's Peter Parker, in my high school, he would have been cool and popular and getting all the chicks, and that's basically what he did in the first Amazing Spider-Man. And Gwen Stacy was immediately into him in the movie. It's like he didn't even try to work for it. And this might seem a little bit extreme, and I've said it all before, so I'll try not to go into that again, but he had this Edward Cullen creepy stalker kind of vibe. That's not what Peter Parker's supposed to be. Huge departure from the character he was supposed to be portraying. On paper, they try to make it look like the classic Peter Parker, or at the very least, the Tobey Maguire Peter Parker from the 2002 film. But again, The Amazing Spider-Man portrays it in the exact opposite direction than what was intended. And basically, it was made to cater to the fans who didn't like the original trilogy. I've said it all before, you can go watch my reviews of them. Yeah, I think he was dealt a really bad hand, and I don't really think that it was very deserving. And thankfully, he's managed to move on from that since then with 99 Homes, Hacksaw Ridge, and Silence. I don't love him as an actor, but I think he's definitely gone a long way to show that incident with The Amazing Spider-Man. Let's just agree that that was a big mistake for him. And question number 3, with Sam Raimi pretty much a lock to direct Doctor Strange 2, do you hope he has as much creative freedom whilst collaborating well with Kevin Feige and Marvel on the film? I think so. Kevin Feige, for those of you who don't know, he was actually an associate producer for the original Spider-Man films and the original X-Men with Bryan Singer. And he's also shown that he's a big fan of the comics and the source material, and he got along really well with Sam Raimi. Just about everything that I've heard about Kevin Feige from anybody who's had any dealings with him, they've had nothing but positive things to say about him. I know that Jon Favreau kind of had a feud with Kevin Feige over Iron Man 2, and Alan Taylor with Thor: The Dark World, who went on to make some really good movies in Terminator. Please. And Joss Whedon has had some trouble with Marvel, but it's not like Whedon and Favreau or even Edgar Wright, who ended up not doing Ant-Man. You're not hearing them badmouth Marvel so much. They still had respect for Kevin Feige, and he has a vision that he wants the universe to go in. Yeah, you definitely want a director who wants to put his or her own distinctive vision onto a project, but you also have to consider what direction the producer wants to go with said movie. Filmmaking is a collaborative effort. Director, producer, editor, writers, light technicians, production assistants, actors, actresses, and yes, even the studio execs. People tend to look at studios as like the spawn of Satan, but you know, not everything is black and white. Sometimes filmmakers don't make a good movie. Sometimes they make mistakes. You can't always blame the directors, but you can't always blame a studio either. For me, it goes both ways. I think for the most part, Marvel has done a good job of having some good 50-50 common ground with their filmmakers. It all comes down to the studio and creators' relationship. Kevin Feige gets along well with James Gunn, and the Russos had a really good experience working with Marvel on the films that they've made for them. Besides some of those little things that you hear in there from like the directors or even Terrence Howard or Natalie Portman, you don't really hear too many bad-mouthing of Marvel Studios. But if Marvel wants to get the fans on their side for the next up-and-coming phases, because there's a lot of people out there who are just saying that they're going to walk away from the MCU, saying that there's nowhere else they can go, they might as well just quit while they're ahead. Endgame is the perfect stopping point. Can't disagree with you, but like it or not, these movies aren't going anywhere. And I think they've proven themselves enough to show that they can still do some good stuff. Is it going to be a bit of a rocky road trying to find their footing again? Yeah, probably. But I trust Kevin Feige with what he's doing. And Sam Raimi, as of right now, still in talks to direct Doctor Strange 2. I think he's pretty much locked in, but I'm waiting for an official confirmation before anything else. I think this would be a huge pull for audiences, given that he's had experience with the comic book movie genre beforehand. Plus, it would be a perfect opportunity for him to bring Tobey Maguire into that movie as his character from the original 3 movies. If that is going to happen, I will squeal my freaking head off. So, thanks Kelvin for your questions, and that's all I have to say about that. Next question from John Richson. Who's your favorite live-action Joker? You had to ask? It's Heath Ledger. There's no other Joker. None. I still have yet to see Joaquin Phoenix as the Joker, I'll give you that, but as of right now, it's still Heath Ledger. No question about it. Next question from Imperfect Dan. What are some of your favorite characters in movies? Rocky Balboa, Forrest Gump, Ethan Hunt, Indiana Jones, Marty McFly from Back to the Future, John McClane from Die Hard. Welcome to the party, pal! and almost any character that Mark Wahlberg plays in a movie. This is unbelievable. Who put the cameras in this place? Who are you? I'm the guy who does his job. You must be the other guy. You're not going anywhere. You know why? We've got a cosmic connection. Since I did some of my favorite lines from Mark Wahlberg, here's one of my favorite lines from the recent Mission Impossible. It is entirely possible to be relaxed and stressed out at the same time. No, it's not. You do it all the time. No, I don't. No, he doesn't. That's easy for you to say, Luther. You're in the van. Well, you wanted to be in the field, tough guy. And tonight, Luther, I would like to be in the van. Next set of questions is from Golden Light Pictures. Have you heard about the Spider-Man 4 fan film coming out likely in 2021? I've been hearing about this for a while. I've never watched a single fan film. I might have watched like some skits, some homemade skits or whatever, that have some really decent production value. But as for fan films, generally I don't really care. I always say, give me the feature film or the feature television show. That's all I care about. That being said, since this is Spider-Man 4, which unfortunately never happened due to Sam Raimi and Sony butting heads with each other, naturally I'm kind of curious to see what comes of it. And the fact that they're actually getting this funded, where are they getting the money for that? Again, I haven't really read up on the production, but I do know that it's happening. So once they show a trailer for it, which probably is gonna happen, we'll see. We will see what happens. Have you ever considered doing more Q&As and not just once a year? Yeah, I've considered that. I kind of prefer doing Q&As on here on YouTube. I've done one before on Facebook. That was a few years back. I think it was in 2016 or 17. I've gotten more subscribers over time and more followers since then. So I'm not always going to be able to see every single question or every single comment. And I don't want to feel like I'm alienating or ignoring anybody. I think eventually I'll try to go into more once a year or so, and maybe do another live Q&A on my Facebook page. So keep your eyes and ears open for any updates on that. Next question is from Joey's Movie Blog. What's your favorite television show? 24 and Breaking Bad. 24 kind of ended in a really rough spot. Still a great show overall, but Breaking Bad, in my opinion, is the perfect television series. Enough said. Next set of questions is from Jordan Sweet. Glad you're still doing this. Thanks, dude. Will you rank and review all 12 Batman movies? Ranking? Probably not. Unless I feel a real desire or need to do one, I don't really like to rank movies that much. And I've already done reviews of The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, so if you want to know my thoughts, you can go watch them. That's probably not going to be the last time that I talk about them in any kind of video. I'll probably do like analysis videos or video essays or audio commentaries. I'll probably do some of that the closer we get to the Robert Pattinson Batman next year. Is there a franchise you'd like to see be rebooted? Transformers. We've seen in Bumblebee what a Transformer movie could be like without Michael Bay having his hands on it, and it was really refreshing to see that. I don't hate the Transformers movies by Michael Bay. They have some fun moments, but overall it's just a lot of loud noises and pyrotechnics and way too much idiotic humor. And overall it just felt very gross. There was like some overly glossy Hollywood feel to it. If someone like Joss Whedon were to make a Transformers movie, I would pay money to see that in a microsecond. Do you have a favorite Oscar movie? Well, if you're talking about recently or all time, I would say it's either The Departed or 12 Years a Slave. Yeah, those two for sure. I have to hear you talk about Glass, also Looper, Chronicle, Edge of 17, Vice, and Kingsman 2. I've done a video on Split. It was part of my mini movie reviews I did a couple of years back, and I've done a video on Unbreakable. I would like to do individual reviews for both Split and Glass. Glass, I was really unsure of how I felt about it at the time. I want to try to watch it again soon, so having some time to process it. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I don't know if it was exactly in a good way or a bad way. I have considered watching it again though, so stay tuned for any updates. Chronicle I've never seen. I don't like Dane DeHaan, but I do like Michael B. Jordan though, and Josh Trank was behind the director's chair for it, and he did the 2015 Fantastic Four. I'll give it a try eventually. Can't say exactly when, but it'll happen. And the other movies that you mentioned, same thing. Once I get around to them, I'll let you guys know. How would you introduce the X-Men into the MCU? There's two ways I think you could go about it. Now that apparently Marvel's going into the multiverse aspect of their cinematic universe, I think that in another timeline you could show the different versions of the X-Men, like the ones with Hugh Jackman and James Marsden and Patrick Stewart and so on. You could say that those movies did happen, but in a separate timeline. Or we could have a completely different interpretation of them show up onto the scene after the events of Avengers Endgame, showing that people like Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver were not the only miracles out there in the world. And you could say that this is the new type of entity or phenomenon that's on the rise after the super soldiers, the Hulk smash, and the Iron Man suits and so on. This I think would be a perfect opportunity for that. So either one of those choices would be fine with me. Next set of questions is from Jacoby Porter. Hopefully I'm saying your name right. It's a much shorter name on the YouTube side, so I recognize who he is, though. He's been following me for a while, so I appreciate it, man. What are some unpopular opinions you have towards the MCU? Well, I don't love the Tom Holland Spider-Man, the solo movies. I'll try to keep that for a later video because I do like Tom Holland. I think he's a good choice for the character and for that universe in particular. His solo movies, I think he's been done a lot better in the team-ups than he has been in his own movies. Homecoming is probably the only one that I actually find the most tolerable. I don't love it, but I think it's a harmless take it or leave it entry. Far From Home, yeah, didn't really think it was that good. Not bad, but just, nah. He's in the back pocket of the Avengers, which doesn't really show much of a financial struggle for him, and they haven't been mentioning Uncle Ben, and they're making Tony Stark the center of his universe, which I'm down for, but don't do that and act like that Uncle Ben didn't mean anything. Not to mention the fact that its portrayal of Aunt May has been kind of sexist, to be honest. I'll save that for a later time, but yeah, I don't love the MCU Spider-Man. I know a lot of people do, and that's totally fine, but it's not really doing it for me. If I'm gonna give any of it the time and day, it's just to go see Tom Holland, because whatever your opinions are on his movies, he is a solid choice for the character. Who's an actor and actress you want to see do a movie together? For me, it would be cool to see Ryan Reynolds and Margot Robbie together in a movie. It's a good idea. I would like to see Tobey Maguire and Jennifer Lawrence in a movie together. My favorite actress and actor together in one movie. I'd be very curious to see what the dynamic would be. Or Gal Gadot and Christian Bale. That would be awesome. Batman and Wonder Woman in the same movie, but from different interpretations. Or heck, even Tobey Maguire and Emma Stone in the same movie. Like, the nerd inside me would be really freaking out. I'd be going... Or how about this? I'll bend the rules a little bit in a Last of Us video game. If they ever do a Last of Us Part 3, which I would imagine they probably will have to do, considering how the sequel might do. We'll see where that goes. But what if Mark Hamill showed up in the Last of Us video games? Since Troy Baker was the voice of the Joker in Arkham Origins and Mark Hamill voiced the Joker for many years, what if he showed up as this really old, wiser hermit that has seen the apocalypse spawn over the past 20 or so years? Yeah, the clickers come in every now and then. And the bandits, they like to get a few licks in on the settlements. I think it'd be really cool to see Mark Hamill show up in those games. It's motion capture, so I don't think it would be that difficult for him to do. But if he and Troy Baker were to share the same scenes together in a video game, especially of The Last of Us, I will be in heaven if that ever happens. Who's a music artist that you love listening to? For me, it's probably Avril Lavigne. I like Avril Lavigne. Well, her earlier stuff. I like her earlier stuff. Her first two albums, Let Go and Under My Skin. It's when she got to the Best Damn Thing, that's when it started to get a little too poppy for my liking. Every once in a while she puts out a good song, like Head Above Water, Wish You Were Here. She was actually the first concert I ever attended when I was 14. Not a bad way to start off concert experiences. My parents raised me on a lot of oldies music, Rolling Stones, Bon Jovi, but at the end of the day, I've learned to appreciate just a little bit of everything. Country isn't exactly my kind of music. Some songs here and there are not too bad. Rap, that really depends. Are you excited for the Disney Plus Marvel shows? I'm intrigued. The WandaVision show, I think, would be a perfect opportunity to delve deeper into the multiverse. The Loki TV series, if that's going to take place right after Avengers Endgame, I'm all for that, because if it's going to be a limited run type of series and not an ongoing one, I think eventually they're going to have to kick him back to 2012, so that way he can get taken home by Thor at the end of the Avengers. Because otherwise, it's going to create a whole big ripple in the space-time continuum. And the Falcon and Winter Soldier show, being a Captain America fan, obviously, yeah, I'm intrigued by that. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Thoughts on Natalie Portman coming back in Thor: Love and Thunder? I'm kind of indifferent to it, and the fact that she's going to be the next Thor, a lot of people are saying that it's too liberal or too SJW friendly or whatever the heck that term means. I've gone into that before in another video, so I'm not going to waste my time going into that. If it's done right in execution, then I should be okay with it. As of right now, I'm like, whatever. Who's an actor and actress you would love to see in the MCU? Besides Tobey Maguire? Christian Bale? No. Christian Bale's already going to be in the next Thor movies. That's already checked off the list. Daniel Radcliffe or Michael J. Fox? Actresses? I would say Eva Mendes. I'd be very curious to see how she would be in the MCU. Or Salma Hayek. I'll watch Salma Hayek in anything she does. Who's a celebrity you feel gets unfairly hated on? Anne Hathaway. There's a lot of actors and actresses out there that I think get a lot of hate very undeservingly. Anne Hathaway, I would say, is number one. And the reasons being is that she's too good of a person or too much of a goody two-shoes. My response to that is, well, so what? shouldn't you be glad that she's not getting into trouble doing drugs or drinking or driving recklessly or doing morally ambiguous stuff or despicable things? I'm glad that she's not doing that stuff. If anything, it should be a positive role model for people. If you're not a fan of her as an actress, okay, fine, but why would you hate any actor as a person? Like, they didn't do anything to you. Favorite movie that won Best Picture at the Oscars? For me, it's Return of the King and The Departed. Argo is one that I really like. If I'm gonna make a fake movie, it's gonna be a fake hit. I think Ben Affleck really came into his own again after the long stretch of bad stuff that he was doing for a while. The next set of questions are from Ross Johnstone. Joe, I really enjoyed your videos in 2019 and I'm looking forward to seeing future videos this year. Thanks, dude. Would you consider doing a review of an animated film like the Toy Story franchise? Yes, I would like to do that, yeah. But I'm trying to figure out what would be the best way to do that because for those of you who don't know, YouTube has found a way to enforce the new COPPA law, which whether or not your content is for kids or not for kids. They're not as strict on it as I thought that they were going to be, even though there's clips out there on YouTube that show clips from animated films and the comments are turned off because it's for kids. The YouTube algorithm is not always the best judge of character, and I get it because there's a lot of users on YouTube, so it's hard to go through every single one. So I'm trying to find the best way to approach that because I'm afraid that if I show maybe like a 4 or 5 second clip from something like Toy Story or Great Mouse Detective or any other animated film, I don't want to take a risk of my whole channel getting flagged because it's not for children, even though my content is not. So yeah, I would definitely like to do one eventually, but I want to wait a while and see just how the COPPA law is being used on YouTube and seeing if they're going to fine-tune it and maybe give some leeway to people. I haven't rolled it out completely, but I want to try to ease my way into that and maybe try to figure out a way to put a disclaimer in my videos at the very least so that way I don't get bumped for saying that it wasn't for kids, even though in their eyes it was for kids. I did a video on the Polar Express not that long ago, so as of right now I haven't gotten into any serious trouble over it, but you never really know. So don't worry, haven't ruled it out completely, but I gotta try to find the best way to do it possible considering the new guidelines on YouTube. And one last question, what are your thoughts on video game adaptations and what game do you think deserves a movie adaptation? I honestly don't think video games should be made into films. Although I did hear that the Tomb Raider film, the recent one anyway, I heard that wasn't too bad. Maybe there are some exceptions to the rule, but overall I don't think video games should be made into films, especially if something like Uncharted or The Last of Us, or probably the first video game that I ever played that made me feel that I was attached to the characters in a cinematic way was the Brothers in Arms series. That was the first time that I can recall being invested in the characters in a video game. If a video game could be that cinematic of an experience, I think it's best to just leave it at that. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Video game to movie adaptations don't have a good track record. I've been wrong before, but I don't think that they should be made. The final set of questions comes from Mr. Sheed92. Love your videos 3000. Oh. That's really flattering. I love you 3000, dude. Since you did a heck of a job with your Dark Knight Rises defense video, would it be possible if you could do a similar video about the Raimi Spider-Man films and how it influenced the modern MCU? Or a similar type of video defending ROTS or TFA just like you did with the Dark Knight Rises. Anyways, can't wait for what you plan next. Thanks, man. Maybe so. I feel like I've said everything that needs to be said about the Sam Raimi Spider-Man films. That being said, though, it's probably not going to be the last time I talk about them on this channel. I'll probably do like an introspect or a retrospective review of some kind. I may or may not do a defense video on those first 2 movies, and maybe to a point the third one. Just want to wait for the right time to do it. As far as the defense videos for certain films like Rise of Skywalker or The Force Awakens, eventually, yeah, but for the time being, I'll probably do a future video on this explaining what my current state is on Star Wars right now. Still love it, not gonna stop being a fan of it, but the fandom has really crushed my spirit. And as far as my love for the franchise, it's just so toxic and so heated that I just need to step away from it for a while, just so I can get some breathing room and focus on talking about other movies on my channel. Eventually I'll do some, but not for a while. Those are all my answers to your questions. Thank you so much, guys, for sending your questions. I had a really good time answering them. Looking forward to the next year to sharing my thoughts with you guys on certain things, and hopefully you guys stick around and support me wherever I go and whatever direction I go in. I'll see you guys very soon.